Mental transmutation. Mind, as well as metals and elements, may be transmuted from state to state, degree to degree, and condition to condition, pole to pole, and vibration to vibration. True Hermetic transmutation is a mental art. That comes to us from the Kybalion, ladies and gentlemen, Hermetic philosophy. Welcome back to the channel. It is Wednesday, and you know what that means. Time to continue with Wednesday wisdom in our series and discovery in Hermetic philosophy, the lost, mystic, esoteric. Some would call it occult, but I would like to call it the wisdom of the ages for everybody, necessary to learn. For generations, readers have debated the origins and studied the knowledge of this mysterious exploration of Hermes Trismegistus and his Hermetic wisdom. Now, the Kybalion is restored. And we are here, ladies and gentlemen, beginning chapter 3. Thank you for joining me and being here. I love and appreciate each and every one of you that spends time here with me and Hermes and all the other wonderful authors and poets and mystics, philosophers, and sages of the ages, ladies and gentlemen. Chapter number 3 is entitled Mental Transmutation. Last week, we finished up chapter number 2, which was the 7 Hermetic Principles. That was a two-parter, so there's 2 videos for that one. And this has been fun, ladies and gentlemen. As the years rolled by, tradition recording that he lived 300 years in the flesh, the Egyptians deified Hermes and made him one of their gods under the name Thoth, or Thoth, however you pronounce it. Years after, the people of ancient Greece also made him one of their many gods, calling him Hermes, the god of wisdom. We've learned that all is mind, and the universe is mental. And so, that being the first principle, as above, so below, being the second principle, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates, being the third. That was correspondence and vibration. Then there is polarity. Everything is dual and has its poles, just like we'll be talking about with the mental transmutation today. And then the principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in, has its tides, rises and falls, once again, poles. And then cause and effect. Everything has its effect, and every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. And then finally, the principle of gender. In everything, there is masculine and feminine principles, and it manifests on all planes. Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we begin chapter 3, Mental Transmutation. Reading from the Kybalion, Hermetic philosophy, once again for purposes of teaching and commentary and expanding the mind so that through that increased awareness, we can hopefully increase the quality of our lives and the lives of those around us. And today will be all about how we can do just that. The book begins by saying, quote, "As we have stated, the Hermeticists were the original alchemists, the original astrologers, and the original psychologists. Hermes having been the founder of these schools of thought. From astrology has grown modern astronomy, and from alchemy has grown modern chemistry. From the mystic psychology has grown the modern psychology of the schools. But it must not be supposed that the ancients were ignorant of that which the modern schools suppose to be their exclusive and special property." Now, see, this is important to understand because we are taught in society today to think of ourselves as the most advanced that we've ever been. But the things that we know today have come from what we've learned, what we knew in the past. And the more and more you research into that, the more you discover that we've actually forgotten more than we ever knew. And so keep that in mind, that we were far greater during the last golden age. If you look at the Yuga cycles, that explains more of that. But there are times in our past, looking at Göbekli Tepe and many sites as such, that it's obvious that we had abilities and knowledge far beyond that which we have rediscovered yet today. However, from alchemy has grown modern chemistry, and from the mystic psychology. Say this isn't an area that when people talking about the esoteric and the occult and the mystical and the magical don't seem to focus on too much. They seem to focus on the alchemy and the astrology and the astrotheology and the implications of a lot of that. But the most important part to me of this wisdom of the ages, this spiritual Hermetic philosophy, is the mystic psychology, because that plays the most practical role in our lives about how we can begin to change the way we think about things in order to have the things that we experience change as well. And so that way we can change our thoughts and change our life in a better way, using once again the wisdom of the ages that comes to us from the greatest of masters, Hermes Trismegistus, meaning thrice greatest, 3 times the greatest. But it must not be supposed that the ancients were ignorant of that which the modern schools teach to be their exclusive and special property. The records engraved on the stones of ancient Egypt show conclusively that the ancients had a full comprehensive knowledge of astronomy, the very building of the pyramids showing the connection between their design and the study of astronomical science, not to mention all the other mind-boggling feats that may have gone into such an undertaking. Nor, the book continues, were they ignorant of chemistry. As you probably noticed already, I tend to extrapolate my own thoughts off of the sentences I'm reading here, so I'm definitely not reading word for word, and I'm adding my own opinions and interjections, if you'd like to call that. I just call it rambling. But if you've been here before, then you know I tend to do that a lot, and hopefully you get value, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, I appreciate you spending your time and attention here with me. Time and attention are our most valuable assets. Keep that in mind. Now, the very building of the pyramids showing the connection between their design and the study of astronomical science. Nor were they ignorant of chemistry, for the fragments of the ancient writings show that they were acquainted with the chemical properties of many things. In fact, the ancient theories regarding physics are being slowly verified by the latest discoveries of modern science. And as this continues, these areas of mystical and scientific are beginning to blend. And we're beginning to see things that we thought impossible being proven in scientific ways. Now, theories regarding physics are being slowly verified by modern science, notably those relating the constitution of matter. Nor must it be supposed that they were ignorant of the so-called modern discoveries in psychology. Once again, to me, most important. On the contrary, the Egyptians were especially skilled in the modern schools, and they were especially skilled in the science of psychology, particularly in the branches that the modern schools ignore. What would that be? We'll get into it. But which, nevertheless, are being uncovered under the name of psychic science, quote unquote, which is perplexing the psychologists of today and making them reluctantly admit that there may be something more to this after all. And there may be something more in it after all. The truth is that beneath the material chemistry, now this may be kind of deep for a lot, but just take it simple. Remember, as Hermes taught us in our studies in the Corpus Hermeticum and the Hermetica, that the way that you can understand this isn't instantly. So don't think we're just going to, if you feel like you're getting every bit of this, you're probably not getting a lot at all. And if you feel like you're struggling capturing all of this, then you're probably picking up something. Sowing the seeds, ladies and gentlemen, because as Hermes taught us in the Hermetica, there's Thoth, the Ibis god. A pure philosophy is a spiritual striving through, how do we do it? A constant contemplation to attain true knowledge of Atum, the things that are, the one God. Great Spirit, grand organized design, whatever you would like to call it, that which is all names. And so, that being said, I don't know what put me on that ramble. Oh, yeah, this is kind of deep. So remember, the constant contemplation. You're, this will take time, and over time, you can continue to come back to this, and it'll start to fit together like puzzle pieces, and you'll be like, aha, oh, I see where that plays a role in my day-to-day experience. The truth is that beneath the material chemistry, astronomy, and psychology, that is, the psychology in its phase of brain action, the ancients possessed a knowledge of a grander version, a more mystical version of each of these three areas, the astronomy being called astrology, and transcendental chemistry being called alchemy, and of transcendental psychology called mystic psychology. They possessed the inner knowledge as well as the outer knowledge. See, a lot of our modern perspectives on many of these areas, whether it be chemistry or astrology or psychology, are purely focused on outward things that, instead of looking inward to try to change from within, that way the outward isn't really having as much of an effect. And this is what Wayne Dyer taught, which is why he was my greatest mentor through this process of personal, growth, self-help, self-mastery, and personal mystic psychology. But this comes to our subject matter of today and the focus, which is mental transmutation. Remember, mind as well as metals and elements may be transmuted. So our states of mind can be moved from positive to negative, or in the reverse, from negative to positive, from pole to pole, from vibration to vibration. But true Hermetic transmutation is not so much focused on the alchemy as much as the mental alchemy. And it is a mental art. Now, the truth is that they possessed the inner knowledge as well as the outer knowledge, and the latter one alone being possessed by modern scientists. So modern scientists, we only have this outer knowledge. Now, we're not speaking for everybody. This is just a bell curve. So with that being said, among the many secret branches of knowledge possessed by the Hermeticists was that known as mental transmutation, which forms the subject matter of today's lesson. Transmutation, ladies and gentlemen, is a term employed to designate the ancient art of the transmutation of metals, particularly the base metals into gold. And so this was always the focus of, the philosopher's stone. Is that correct? I'm not sure. But, the old story of always trying to turn lead into gold. The word transmute, sorry, means, quote, to change from one nature, form, or substance into another, to transform. That's the Webster's definition. And accordingly, mental transmutation means the art of transforming our mental states. So this is going back to practical, personal, self-help, how we can have a better life and have more peace and comfort and joy in our day-to-day experiences through coming to us from many, many centuries ago in the wisdom of the ancient Egyptians and the sage god Thoth and Hermes about how we can have a better life. Simply using the art of mental chemistry. Mental transmutation, the art of changing and transforming mental states, forms, and conditions into others. So we may see that mental transmutation is the art of mental chemistry. And if we like the term, a form of practical mystic psychology. I really like that. I highlighted that one, the mystic psychology there. But this means far more than appears on the surface. Transmutation, alchemy, or chemistry on the mental plane rather than the physical plane. See, this is so weird because we were talking about this yesterday in our video about mysteries of the unexplained, about how there's this mental plane and then there's the physical plane, and the dimensions of time are affected by the mental plane as well as the material plane. And it had to do with the living and non-living and how everything is within the mind of God. I had no clue that that video yesterday from literally mysteries of the unexplained talking about cognition of the future and premonitions and precognitions and being able to see the future and how this is possible in different ways explained by what was it, mathematical physicists and theoretical mathematicians and these kind of guys from the 1700s even up to the 60s, but they were all saying exactly what's being taught in this wisdom of the ages that comes passed down to us from the greatest minds and the greatest times in our history. Now, the Kybalion, is a more modern book that's based off the knowledge of Hermeticists from the 1800s and 1900s and before, and kind of gathered by William Walker Atkinson. But a lot of his work was based off of two other Hermeticists. And so he attributed the book to the three initiates. And so this is somebody's modern ideas about the old texts of Hermes and his conversations with Asclepius and Tot May. However, see, I'm rambling again. Hopefully you're getting value. I just wanted to clarify that, though. A form of practical mystic psychology. So this means there's far more than appears on the surface. Transmutation, alchemy, chemistry on the mental plane is important enough in its effects, to be sure, and if the art stopped there, it would still be one of the most important branches of study known to man. Now, this is why I say this shouldn't be called occult. An occultation is like a blocking of something. If you think about an eclipse, you have a blockage of something and it's covered up or hidden. This should not be hidden, ladies and gentlemen, but you can see why it might have been over the past few centuries, if not thousands of years, because if we gave this knowledge to everybody, I got passionate about this last week, but we would have an enlightened society. We would have an enlightened humanity, enlightened men and women, ladies and gentlemen, and we could take the power back and manifest our own reality. But that, once again, that goes back to the diligence of being able to control your mind. If you could create something the instant you thought about it and manifest immediately, would that be dangerous? Because how well are we all at controlling our minds? Well, nothing like that of the masters, that's for sure. The universe itself is mental. If you watched yesterday's video, you'll be laughing because that's literally what was being said by 1700s mathematical physicists. Let's figure that out. I just love the synchronicities. Like that's what this is just a random page here called Cognition of the Future and Mysteries of the Unexplained on page 31. But then it's like right here. The one such suggestion by Gerhard Dietrich Wassermann, a mathematical physicist at the University of Durham in England, is that all events in reality exist as timeless mental patterns. Timeless mental patterns, which everything in the universe, including every particle, is associated with this timeless mental pattern. The all is mind. The universe is mental, says the Hermetic philosophy. But Gerhard Dietrich Wassermann from University of Durham in the 1700s or 1800s totally agrees. And then also Baron Gottfried Wilhelm von Leibniz, the great philosopher and mathematician, also stated and wrote that all the different classes of beings which taken together make up the universe are in the ideas of God, who knows distinctly their essential gradations, and it would be impossible to disrupt this, as for that would imply disorder and imperfection. That, coming to us from some well-respected gentlemen from a totally different book and teaching and lesson, but here we have it, ladies and gentlemen. The first of the 7 Hermetic principles is the principle of mentalism, the axiom of which is the all is mind and the universe is mental. Mental. That that means, see if you're like confused, what does that mean? The all is mind, the universe is mental. It sounds crazy, right? Hang on, remember the constant contemplation. Think about it. So what this means is that the underlying reality behind all of this, the underlying substantial reality of the universe is mind. The universe itself is mental. That is, existing within the mind of the all, or God. We shall consider this principle in succeeding lessons, but let us see the effect of the principle if it be assumed to be true. If the art stopped at alchemy or chemistry, that's one thing. But if it just stopped at this mystic psychology and the mental transmutation of understanding our minds in the mental plane and how we can go from pole to pole, from negative mental states to positive mental states through a form of changing or transmutating, going from vibration to vibration or frequency to frequency, dissonance to resonance and harmony. We shall consider this. If the universe is mental in nature, then mental transmutation must be the art of changing the conditions of reality along the lines of matter, force, and mind. So using our minds, ladies and gentlemen, we can change matter, force, or whatever that describes. That could mean many things, and also our mental states. Knowing this and believing this, see, a lot of people say, this is crazy. You can't do this. I just don't, all these furrows of worry in my bank account, and it's just got to be real. But it's just a ride. And some people come back to us and try to tell us, hey, man, there's thrills and chills and funny colors and ups and downs, but it's just a ride. So relax. But we hate to hear that because we're so serious. Why so serious? I don't know where this is all coming from. It's just popping into my head randomly. So credit goes to Atum and Hermes for this one, ladies and gentlemen. But along the lines of matter, force, and mind. So you see, therefore, that mental transmutation is really the magic of which the ancient writers had so much to say in their mystical works, and about which they gave so few practical instructions. That's why spiritual philosophy and mystic psychology is my main focus from all of this. If somebody were to ask, what's your somebody asked me what's your specialty in the occult? And I was like, "Oh, I don't have any specialty. I'm just trying to expand awareness, learning from the greatest wisdom of all of history so that I can have a better, comfier life." We all see so many people in our lives that are struggling mentally, just with anxiety and stress and anger and disappointments, hopes, desires, and all of this that we all experience. None of us are above this, not even the masters. The masters just know how to transmute it pretty quickly so they can get out of the negative polarity and get back to a positive polarity. But some of us haven't done the work and haven't heard any practical lessons or haven't had any practical instructions on how the heck we can do that for ourselves. So I have great empathy for all of us, even myself. You have to have empathy for yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Quit beating yourself up. This is we're all here. We're all doing this journey, living life, and we're all at a certain part in our own journey. And so each of us, like I said, needs this. This area of study would still be today the most important branches of study known to man. The art of mental chemistry, practical psychology, mystic psychology, whatever you want to call it, but changing the conditions and the state of our mind and our thoughts. That mental transmutation is really the magic of which the ancient writers had so much to say in their mystical works, and about which they gave so few practical instructions. So think of it this way: if all of reality, because sometimes God like seems to be a separate character rather than containing all of reality within itself and the operations and functions and the laws of all of that. So we're looking at that. If that is mental, then the art which enables one to transmute mental conditions must render the master of the controller. Wait, sorry. Must render the master the controller of material conditions as well as those ordinarily called mental. What does this mean? This means what Wayne Dyer used to always say is that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So, like, I'm looking at an old dead plant that I should have thrown away from last year, but it's just need to switch the potting soil and put new soil in and start a new plant. Now, right next to it, there is a new plant and a tomato is growing. Our perspective will change the way that we experience our physical reality. So, our mental plane will change the way that we experience the physical plane. So, if I look at the dead plant and have a upset, negative outlook on things, my mental state changes the way that I experience the physical reality. If I look at that same dead plant and see it as an opportunity for me to clean things up and begin anew, I'll have a different experience. Now, this can go even deeper and more mystical, that the ideas about creation and manifestation, using your mind to affect the world of the waves or frequencies and vibrations, and going from that to the world of particles, is how different forms of manifestation occur. However, that's a different subject. I just wanted to clarify that If all be mental, then the art which enables one to change mental conditions must then also give us the ability and make us the controller of material conditions as well as those ordinarily called mental. So if we can change our mind state, we can control our material lives better. As a matter of fact, none but advanced mental alchemists have been able to attain the degree of power necessary to control the grosser physical conditions. What would that mean? Such as the control of the elements of nature. And I have that circled there because imagine if you had such great focus of mind and clarity of mind and such great knowledge and wisdom of the makeup of the fundamental elements of reality, that which consist of electric and magnetic principles and polarities, and there being the elements of earth, water, fire, and air, and the different various forms of each of those, usually not taken too literally, more allegorically. There's a better way to describe that, however, as well as the element of the akasha, which is the principle of the mental plane. That's the fifth element, ladies and gentlemen. And so that can be seen here in the magician. I believe that's the first card in. But so you have each of the elements there, positive and negative polarities, the animals and the mineral kingdoms, and the male, the masculine and feminine down there, and the in between, and the magician in the middle, and so much more. That one's broken down quite a bit. Maybe we'll go over that one day, but that is what's being referenced when it says that if, these masters that maybe study 50 lifetimes get to this advanced level to where they attain degree, possibly a power necessary to control conditions such as control the elements of nature. Control air. See, that makes me think of Avatar, the airbender, where these guys are like shooting air with certain, they do chants and rhythms or whatever, and some guys can control water. But this isn't the purpose of all of this, because a lot of people learn that magic is actually something real and they think, sweet, I'm like going to be Harry Potter, or I'm going to shoot fireballs and lightning bolts. And this is not what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. This is about mystic psychology and mental alchemy. So let's focus once again on that. We're making some good progress here. Hopefully you're getting value. I know I am. We still have about a page and a half left here on today's lesson of mental transmutation. Hopefully my ramblings have been well. It's all for fun, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just learning this here along with you, so I am no master. We're on this journey together. And so the elements of nature, the production or cessation of tempests, the production or cessation of earthquakes, wow, and other great physical phenomena. But that such men have existed and do exist today is truly a matter of earnest belief to all advanced occultists of all schools. That the masters exist and have these powers, the best teachers assure their students, having had experience to justify them in such belief and statements. These masters, and I've highlighted a lot of this. This is a very you could think you could think on a lot of these lines for a very long time as to their implications. But these masters do not make public exhibitions of their powers, but rather they seek seclusion from the masses and the crowds of men in order to better work their way along the path of attainment. We mention their existence at this point to merely call your attention to the fact that their power is entirely mental. and operates along the lines and the laws of the higher mental transmutation under the Hermetic principle of mentalism. The universe is mental. But students and Hermeticists of lesser degree than masters, as ourselves, the initiates and teachers are able to freely work along the mental plane in mental transmutation. In fact, all that we call psychic phenomena, or mental influence, or mental science, new thought, phenomena, etc., operates along the same general premise and outline. For there is but one principle involved, no matter what the phenomena is called or titled. The student and the practitioner of mental transmutation works among the mental plane, transmuting mental conditions, states, etc., into others, according to various formulas, more or less efficacious. The various treatments, affirmations, denials, etc., of the schools of mental science are but formulas, often quite imperfect and unscientific. I'll add, because it's a very individual journey to try to begin to work through your mental state and begin to control your mental state. This takes a lot of positive psychology. You need to pound it into your head all the time. You probably multiple times a day, if not 5 to 6 times a day, which is why I'm a big fan of Dr. Wayne W. Dyer as well as Dr. David R. Hawkins and many others, ladies and gentlemen. With that being said, the various treatments, affirmations, quite imperfect and unscientific of the Hermetic art. The majority of modern practitioners are quite ignorant compared to the ancient masters, of course, for they lack the fundamental knowledge upon which the work is based, the mystical perspective of this. Not only may the mental states, etc., of one's self be changed or transmuted by Hermetic methods, but also the states of others may be. This is why I say we can use this awareness to increase the quality of not only our lives, but the lives of those around us. Be the tide that lifts all boats, ladies and gentlemen. And so, for they lack the fundamental knowledge upon which the work is based, not only may the mental states be transmuted, but also the states of others may be, and are constantly transmuted in the same way. Usually, I'm surprised I didn't highlight this, usually unconsciously. And see, we do this all the time. When we are around other people expressing our mental state, we are unconsciously influencing the mental state of those around us and the environment. I've said this before, talking about different things, but when someone comes into a room yelling and cursing out of anger, your mental state is instantly transmutated and affected based on theirs. And this can go backwards and forwards. So you can remain at peace and respond with peace and comfort. That might not it might anger them more, it might bring them down either way, but there will be this back and forth effect of not only are the mental states of oneself changed or transmuted, but also the states of others, of oneself changed or transmuted, but also the state of others. Constantly transmutated in the same way, usually unconsciously, but often consciously, by some understanding the laws and the principles. This I did have highlighted here. In cases where the people affected are not informed of the principles of self-protection. And this, more than this, many students and practitioners of modern mental science know that every material condition, depending upon the minds of other people, may be changed or transmuted in accordance with the earnest desire, will, most important, the willpower, and quote-unquote treatments of persons desiring changed conditions of life. There was a lot in that. I'm not going to break it down. But we can change the conditions of our life, simply. It's based on a lot of other aspects. But as we're seeing, we can break these down if we do work on this with ourselves. Self-mastery, ladies and gentlemen. The public are so generally informed regarding these things at present that we do not deem it necessary to mention the same thing at length. Our purpose at this point is being merely to show the Hermetic principle and art underlying all of these various forms of practice. Alchemy, astrology, astronomy, but more importantly, psychology and mystic psychology. Good and evil, for the force can be used both directions. So you can use this force. There's dark magic and there's light magic, ladies and gentlemen. There's the dark side and there's the light side. It is just the force. Whether you use the force out of anger and malice and have zero control over it, or whether you have harnessed an alignment and a harmony and an attainment of the force and mastery of yourself and the principles, and then you have great control with it. But that obviously takes a lot more work, a lot more diligence. But there are these choices. And there is good and evil, and the force can be used in opposite directions according to the Hermetic principles and the law of polarity. In this little book, we shall state the basic principles of mental transmutation, that all who read may grasp the underlying principles and thus possess the master key that will unlock the many doors of the principle of polarity. We shall now proceed to the consideration of the first of the Hermetic 7 principles, the principle of mentalism, in which is explained that the truth that the all is mind, the universe is mental, in the words of the Kybalion. We ask close attention and careful study of this great principle on the part of our students, for it is really the basic principle of the whole Hermetic philosophy and the base principle of the Hermetic art of mental transmutation and mystic psychology. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a boon to mental transmutation and the wisdom of Hermes Trismegistus and Hermetic philosophy. Wow, that was fantastic. Next week, ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves on chapter 4, entitled The All. Under and back of the universe of time, space, and change is ever to be found the substantial reality, the fundamental truth. So there's like an explanation of God. What is God, you ask? Here's your answer. God is that which underlies all outward manifestations and appearances, the essence and the essential reality of those things, and the thing in itself, actually existing, being the essential nature and element underlying all of reality. So, there's different ideas and opinions and theories on this, ladies and gentlemen, but if we be a thinking man or woman, we realize that all of these changing things must be but outward appearances or manifestations of some underlying power or in other words, some substantial reality. God, Atum, grand organized design, or as the divine Pymander put it, the things that are. Remember, in Hermes' first words of his first book, he said, "O my son," to his son Thoth, "write this first book both for humanity's sake and for piety and reverence and honor towards God, for there can be no spiritual pursuit more true or just than to seek to know the things that are. And then to acknowledge thanks for all things, that's extremely important, and to that which hath made them, which thing we shall not cease continually to do." Ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Remember to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through a greater awareness and understanding of the nature of reality, so that through that awareness we can increase the quality of our lives and the lives of those around us. Remember to seek to discover the lost wisdom of the ages and the mysteries of our history. And also keep in mind that there is no way to happiness, because happiness is the way. It's not a result, it's a process. It's the ability that we create within ourselves to bring to life. It takes some work. Don't worry, you can get there. But when we can create this ability within ourselves, all the things that we've been telling ourselves, oh, when I get this much and have this, becomes irrelevant. Because then we already are there, ladies and gentlemen. And then hopefully the whole journey is wonderful. All right. I love and appreciate each and every one of you. Be sure to expand the description, ladies and gentlemen, to get this book for yourself so you can put it on your shelf and you can follow along in the future in this series, as well as have it for personal reference. Because remember, it's only through going back to this time and time and time again that it'll really start to sink in, and those seeds will start to sprout and they'll grow little roots and they'll pop out of the ground and begin to make flowers. And then we'll finally be like that magician with the lotus flower over his head. But we'll see if we can get there. Oh, yeah, as well as a link to these two books as well, that we've also done a full series on this channel of the entire Hermetica. That was where we started. Then we went through and read the entire Corpus Hermeticum, of course, with my ramblings and additions. And now we're going through the Kybalion. And it's been great, ladies and gentlemen. Today was a great one because the psychological aspect is real important for us to help have a better life. All right. I think I'll leave it there, ladies and gentlemen. I love and appreciate each and every one of you. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this with somebody who is like-minded to help support the work that we do here on the channel so we can continue on this journey of seeking to discover the lost wisdom of the ages. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, be the change that you want to see. Be the example that you want to set. No, 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 no. Thank you.